Hello everyone, welcome to our video on how to set up your project for success right from the start. We are students at George Brown College in Information Systems Business Analysis, and this is our submission for Information Technology Project Management course led by instructor Jay Mikowski for the winter 2025 term. Did you know that nearly 70% of all projects fail to meet their original goals, stay within budget, or finish on time? That's according to PMI's Pulse of the Profession report. And more often than not, the root cause isn't what happens midway through the project, it's what didn't happen at the very beginning. In this video, we're going to share 3 essential principles on how to set up your project for success right from the start. We're going to cover 3 practical principles that are within your control that are sure to be valuable to your project. We're group number 4, and we are 4 students studying business analysis at George Brown College. My name is Adib, and I'll be going over the introduction and timeline. Then I will pass it to Shubham, who will jointly cover principle number 1 with me, which is about defining clear objectives and scope. Anzar will cover principle number 2, which is about building the right team and defining roles. And Tejas will cover principle number 3, which is about identifying risk early on and communication. Finally, I will provide a summary of all the 3 principles at the end. For these principles, we will avoid more common and ambiguous advice that is out of your control, such as choosing the right project, because oftentimes as a project manager, you might not have that much control in picking the project itself, especially in smaller organizations. You might be tasked for a project and given a team already. In these type of scenarios, what can you do to increase your chances of having a successful project? Well, we will cover 3 practical and implementable tips that are powerful to helping your project succeed. I'm going to pass it over to Shubham, who will kick things off with principle number 1.
Thank you, Adib. Now, the first principle is defining clear objectives and scope. Before you do anything else in a project, you need to define what success looks like. That is where your project objectives come in. Think SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Let's say your team is tasked with launching a new mobile app. If your objective is just to build an app, you're setting yourself for a problem. But if your objective is to launch a fully tested mobile app with 3 core features by 30th of October and within a $50,000 budget, then everyone knows what they are working towards. Equally important is defining scope. Your scope outlines what's included in the project and what's not. It helps prevent scope creep, when new tasks and features get added without proper review. Now I'm going to pass it back to Adib to go over a real world example showcasing the importance of defining clear objectives and scope early on.
Thank you, Shubham. Here's a real world case that made national headlines. The ArriveCan app, launched by the Canadian federal government during the COVID-19 pandemic. It started as a common sense project with an initial budget of only $80,000. However, by the time it was phased out, its cost had ballooned to about $60 million, which is 750 times over budget. Why did this happen? A Telford School of Management professor pointed to a critical root cause: poor project setup at the front end. There was a lack of clear planning, evolving objectives, and a failure to properly assess feasibility, risks, and scope. The app faced over 177 updates due to the changing border policies, language requirements, and technical complexities. But in short and in summary, the project scope kept shifting, and without proper rebaselining. This is a textbook case of scope creep and poor project front-end definition. Exactly what principle number 1 warns us about. If the project had invested more time up front to define its objectives, analyze its feasibility, and lock down its scope, it may have avoided the massive budget overrun and loss of public trust. You can avoid this. Use a scope statement or a project charter to document this clearly. This aligns with the PMBOK guide under the project integration and scope management knowledge areas. The project charter in particular is crucial. It authorizes the project and defines high-level goals, assumptions, risks, and stakeholders. It also aligns the team and leadership. Ask yourself, What are we really trying to achieve? What do success and failure look like? Who gets to decide? By locking in clear objectives and scope from the start, you're laying down the foundation that guides your entire project. Let's move on to principle number 2 with Unzer.
Thank you, Adeep. Projects are people powered. Even the best plan can't move forward without a capable and coordinated team. It starts with identifying the right mix of skills. For example, if you're launching a new website, you'll probably need a designer, a developer, a content creator, and someone to manage communications. That seems obvious, but problems usually arise not from who's involved, but from who is doing what. That's why clearly assigning responsibilities is the key. Now let's move on to the next slide to dive deeper into this. Each team member should know exactly what tasks they're responsible for, what deadlines they're working toward, and who they can go to for support. It can be as simple as a shared to-do list or a task tracker that maps responsibilities to names. One of the easiest ways to stay on track is to hold short weekly check-ins where everyone gives a quick update, what they've done, what they're working on, and what they need help with. It helps keep everyone aligned and makes sure no one is overwhelmed or falling behind in silence. Now let me share a quick story with you. A classmate group was working on a marketing plan for a case study, but they didn't agree on who would do the research, who would do the design slides, and who would write the script. By the final week, they realized two people had been working on the same thing and no one had started the intro. That's the kind of confusion you can avoid with clear roles. Also think about team dynamics. If someone is strong in communication, maybe they lead team meetings. If someone is better with visuals, they take charge of design. It's about playing to each other's strengths. The clearer your roles are, the smoother your collaboration will be, and the more likely your project will stay on track and on time. According to PMI's Pulse of the Profession report, high performing teams often have clearly defined responsibilities and strong collaboration. It's not just about filling seats, it's about matching the right people with the right work. Use tools like MS Project or even a shared document to assign tasks, track progress, and communicate expectations. And don't forget, check in regularly. Make sure the team still understands their roles as the project evolves. The bottom line, the right team with clearly defined roles turns your plan into action. I will pass it on to Tejas, who will cover principle number 3 now.
Thank you, Anza. So now you have clear goals and a great team. But how do you prepare for the unexpected? Every project has risks. They could be technical, financial, scheduling, or even related to team dynamics. But here's the good news. Risks can be managed, especially if you identify them early and plan your response. Let's talk about the four types of risk management techniques. First, avoidance. We eliminate the risk altogether by changing the plan or avoiding the risky activity entirely. Second, mitigation. We reduce the likelihood or impact of the risk through proactive measures like buffers or backups. Third, acceptance. We acknowledge the risk and choose to monitor it without taking immediate action, usually when the risk is low. 4. Transference. We shift the responsibility of the risk to someone else, like outsourcing or using insurance. Now that you know about risk mitigation strategies, let's go over how to choose which one to apply based on probability and impact of the risk that is identified. First, low probability, low impact. These are minor risks that probably won't happen, and even if they do, they won't cause major issues. For this, the best strategy is to accept the risk. Don't spend time or budget preparing for it. Just keep an eye on it in case it grows. Second, low probability, high impact. Rare but potentially devastating risk. For example, a server crash in the middle of the product launch. These are the best handled with the transfer strategy. Pass the responsibility to someone else, like insurance or a service level agreement with a vendor. Third, high probability, low impact. These are almost guaranteed to happen, but they won't disrupt the entire project. For instance, a minor delay in receiving supplies. Use the mitigate strategy to reduce the impact. Maybe you build in buffer time or use alternate vendors. 4. High probability, high impact. The most serious kind. These need the avoid strategy. For example, if a critical team member is likely to leave mid-project, you might redesign the schedule so their work finishes early or crossed in another person in advance. The idea is to match the right strategy to the type of risk and not treat all risks equally. Doing this early gives your team confidence and avoids scrambling when issues pop up. Now let's talk communication. Because even the best risk plan won't help if no one knows about them. Every project needs a clear communication plan. Who needs to be updated? How often? In what format? For example, your sponsor might want a weekly summary, but your developer team might prefer daily check-ins on Slack. Clarifying communication expectation early keeps your team aligned and avoid delays due to miscommunication. Also, build in escalation path so everyone know how to go when something goes wrong. By identifying your risk early and matching the right strategy to each one, plus setting up clear communication, you can tackle issues proactively and keep your project on track. There you have it. 3 principles to consider and apply if you want your project to be set up for success right from the start. Let's review all 3 on the next slide.
Awesome points, team. Let's take a moment to recap and summarize. To set up your project for success right from the start, we recommend implementing 3 principles. Number 1, define clear objectives and scope. We recommend using SMART goals and having a clearly defined scope. Number 2, build the right team and define roles. Choose team members with the right skills and align members to tasks that match their strengths. And number 3, identify risks early and set a communication plan. Anticipate risks and apply the appropriate strategy. And remember to communicate with the team with clear and consistent expectations. These 3 tips will be the foundation to the success of your project. You've probably seen it yourself. Projects that skip planning early on usually pay for it later, in the form of delays, confusion, or burnout. But by applying these principles from the beginning, you're not just launching a project, you're building momentum that carries through to delivery. We used these exact strategies while working on this video. We defined a clear scope and deliverables, assigned each member to specific tasks, and identified possible risks, like what we'd do if a team member dropped the course and how would we redistribute the work and responsibilities. We worked and assigned roles according to our team members' strengths. For example, Shubham is great at redesigning visuals and took the lead in designing the PowerPoint. I am comfortable speaking in front of a camera and chose to take the lead role in the video recording. We assigned roles according to our team members' strengths, but still distributed the work fairly. We also created a communication plan and did regular status updates, and honestly, it just makes the process smoother and more collaborative. Thank you so much for watching our video. We hope these tips will help you kick off your next project with clarity and confidence. We wish you success on your next project.